welcome everybody to Her Story Podcast. Today I have Lauri on the show. Lauri, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Today's guest is Lauri Partanio, an animal welfare advocate, entrepreneur, and the founder of Professional Pets Florida. From vet tech to business owner to nonprofit leader, she's built a mission-driven brand that's all about compassion, care, and community. So the first question, I wanted to focus on you coming to Florida. You're a native of New York.
I am.
So what brought you to Florida, and how did your animal care journey begin?
So I came to Florida about 8 years ago now, and I very transparently do not like the snow. Can't do the cold weather. So I've always wanted to live in Florida. So I made the move here, and I worked in exotic animal medicine in New York. So we did lizards, we did birds, reptiles, all that stuff. And I moved to Florida only to find that there were no exotics only practices. So I moved into dog and cat medicine once I got to Florida.
Awesome. And you started as a vet receptionist in 2014 and rose through nearly every title in animal care. What drove you to keep moving and learning in such a demanding field?
I always wanted to be a veterinarian. That was always the goal, or a marine biologist, something with animals when I was growing up, and I needed to start somewhere. So I started as a veterinary receptionist and just kind of worked my way up the ladder. And quickly I realized that I needed to do something more than just reception. So I became a veterinary assistant, a veterinary technician. I switched gears to animal control and welfare, and finally owning my own business in pet care.
Awesome. And did you have pets growing up?
I didn't. Really? Yeah. So I'm actually allergic to dogs and cats. So
wow.
Yeah. So that's why I started in exotic medicine, because of my allergies. So I didn't have any dogs and cats growing up, but I was always dog crazy. I was always dog obsessed. Whenever I think of when I was younger, I had the book of dog encyclopedias, and I was always learning about like different breeds and how to take care of them. Eventually I wanted to like own my own animal, but I went into exotic medicine just because I couldn't be around dogs and cats. So once I moved to Florida, I actually got my first 2 dogs, which are my dogs that I have now.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. What finally pushed you to step into ownership and launch the Professional Pets Florida?
When I started Professional Pets Florida, it was out of necessity for my own animals. So when I was working as a vet tech, I was running home on my lunch break every single day to let my dogs out, and I didn't want to do that anymore. But I couldn't find anybody that was even remotely qualified in my brain to take care of my animals, and that's because I am a crazy dog mom also, and I have high standards, and I just couldn't find anybody on, the popular dog walking, pet sitting apps that I thought was able to care for my dogs. My older dog, Tuna, she had torn her ACL at the time, so she had gone through like major orthopedic surgery, and I wanted to find somebody like me, somebody that had veterinary experience, somebody that had the knowledge and the high standards that I had, and I couldn't find anybody, so I decided to build a team that could and stick to the high standards that I wanted for my own animals.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever try like any of the popular dog care apps before you were like...
I did.
Yeah.
Wasn't a super big fan, mostly because there wasn't a ton of regulation there. There wasn't, I always wanted something super, super, what's the word I'm looking for? Consistent. I wanted consistent care for my animals. I didn't want just, whoever was available, whoever liked the dogs that day to take care of my pets. So once I found the consistency that I was looking for, that's what drove me to further the brand itself.
Mm-hmm. And then pivoting to your brand, your business specialization is high energy, senior, anxious, and special needs pets. Why did you choose that niche?
So I feel that, everybody wants to take care of the happy, healthy golden retriever energy type animals. And
The easy ones.
right, the people that have those dogs, sometimes they book with the 15-year-old that lives in their neighborhood that's going to walk their dog for $5 because it's like the easier job, but it's more difficult and it's more anxious for pet owners that have high energy, special needs, anxious animals, those that take a little bit longer to warm up, to find qualified care for those animals and somebody with compassion and patience, and they're dedicated to their safety. So I wanted to be a safe space for those owners that have those dogs and those cats and those exotics that are a little more work than the other ones. And we're never going to charge extra for it because they have a more complicated routine, or they have medications, or they have mobility issues. So I think being a safe space for those pet owners and allowing those people to live their lives, to go to work guilt-free and be able to go on vacation. I mean, we have tons of owners that come to us and they're like, I haven't been on vacation in 10 years because of my dog. I'm just so terrified to leave them. I don't want to put them in a boarding facility. So offering people a specialized care solution that has such high standards like we do, it's been like a big driving force, because when we're able to relieve that anxiety and provide that solution for them, that's like the best feeling in the world for me, for my team, for everybody.
With the other pet care resources that you came across before you started your own business, did they specify, like, if your dog has these issues, we can't take care of them? Like, that they didn't even, like, provide an option?
They just didn't want to.
Okay.
They just didn't, because if they could make the same amount of money to care for the happy-go-lucky, easy-peasy puppy, why would they want to take on the extra work for the same amount of money? So we kind of ran into, between us having high standards and them not really wanting to deal with it, or feeling like a burden. And that's something that we hear a lot from new clients. They're like, the other pet care provider made me feel like my animals are a burden. And like, that's a terrible feeling,
For sure. Because the animals can't help it, right?
No. And, my grandmother, she worked for a very long time in like elder affairs, like with seniors. And she always instilled in me that senior people are to be respected and they are to be taken care of. And, there are tons of people out there that don't take care of their elders. And it's the same thing for animals. Just because your animal is 15 years old doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve the same amount of care and respect, if not more, than the young, happy-go-lucky puppy.
That's a very good point. Yeah. I think we've all seen the horror stories of, like, elderly homes, and especially for pets. So I think that's a true reflection of your values, which this next question touches on. You said that Professional Pets Florida reflects your core values of safety, dedication, patience, and compassion. How do you build those values into your services and team culture?
Our team is modeled after my background. So my background's in veterinary medicine, and it's also in animal welfare through animal control. So having that background of those two fields builds our team around those values. So safety, patience, dedication, compassion. There is something that we need to instill and keep at the forefront of our mind at every single booking, every single home that we walk into, every single pet that we come across. That's at the forefront of our mind, because that's the standards that we hold ourselves to. And that's what I think that our clients deserve. And that's what they love. So
For sure. And you said you have a team of 10, correct? What's the hardest and most rewarding part of growing your staff?
Being able to provide care to more people is obviously one of the great parts about having a staff, and having more availability than we would if I was just solo. And there was a time that it was just me when I was building the business and getting the clientele. But being able to have a staff and being able to trust that staff to do the job that I would do, if not better, it was a learning curve, definitely, like being able to give that trust over to my team. But, we've chosen staff members that they have those values. Those values are not something that I can teach them. They're something that you either have or you don't have. And my manager, Justine, and I, we joke that we hire based on a vibe. And it's true, because if you don't have it, it's very evident. If you don't have the care and compassion for animals and, in your heart of hearts, their safety, their dedication, their compassion, welfare, everything, it's very obvious from the beginning. So our team that we have now, absolutely phenomenal. And I hope to grow it even larger and find individuals that fit that mold and fit our values and what we're looking for. It's like super important in our work culture.
Have you ever had to let someone go because you're like, your values, I just don't see them? You have?
I have.
Has it happened a lot, or?
No, just once. It was not as evident at the beginning during the hiring process. But once we did realize that, we did have to let them go, and it wasn't anything bad or malicious. It just wasn't the right fit.
Yeah.
So now we're super selective. We have a very intensive hiring process, super intensive training, and again, the high standards that we have for care with our bookings, we also have during our hiring process as well.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that just goes to show, like, you really stick to those core values if you're willing to be like, hey, you don't share in this with us. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a reflection of the business. It's a reflection of me. The people that I choose, our clients, trust us to select amazing people the job that can be duplicated consistently over time. They know whether it's myself going into a booking, Justine, Jocelyn, Trisha, everybody the same every single time. The experience is the same.
And professional pets, like, that's a broad term. Is it just dogs and cats and stuff, or is it other, more unique animals?
We do dogs, cats mostly, but we will take exotics, small pocket pets. We're actually caring for a bunch of sugar gliders right now. So
wow.
Yeah, so we'll do everything, small farm animals like goats. We do have a client that has a goat yoga studio, so we take care of her goats for the yoga. Just no like large animals, so like cows or pigs or horses, but everything else.
I've heard of goat yoga before.
It's super cute.
Oh, that's so awesome. Are they like young goats, or are they like full grown?
There are some full grown ones, but mostly like the babies, and they'll like jump on your back. And
That's so cute.
Yeah.
I love that. You have like the best job ever.
It's fun to play with, dogs and cats all day. And, I'm going from one extreme to the other. In animal control, I was dealing sometimes with like the worst of the worst human beings and like not so friendly animals in certain situations. And I'm doing a complete 180 because I'm dealing with amazing owners. We have amazing clients that really care about their animals, and they want personalized care. They want an in-home option for their pets. So to go from one extreme to the other, it's been really rewarding in that sense.
Awesome. And I want to talk a little bit about your nonprofit leadership. You're the founder of Pizza for Pets. Can you tell me a little bit about the concept of that and how you got its name?
Pizza for Pets was a passion project of mine because working in animal welfare, I missed that. I missed the connection that I had with the community, the connection that I had with the shelter animals. And, I worked for Hillsborough County for several years, and I saw all of the animals that, I was bringing to the Pet Resource Center, and, the dogs that weren't making it out of there, and the cats as well. But I wanted to do something to help in that sense. And because I had worked for the county already, I already had kind of the connections that I needed to be able to do something. I didn't know what that something was. I saw over time that people online, especially, and in person, they do really well with seeing in your face the animals that need help, right? So you think about the, ASPCA commercials with the Sarah McLachlan music, and, that touches people, and you're putting it right in front of their face to help. And I had brand photos done for the business, and I had a professional photographer meet me at the Pet Resource Center and we had taken these brand photos, and they were for the business, but they featured adoptable dogs and cats that needed to be adopted. And they weren't fluffy, adorable little dogs. They were like big old pit bulls, and like they were adorable. And because we had professional photos taken of them, it got them adopted.
Oh, wow.
And, I saw the effect that had just by putting it on the internet. So I thought, if we do something else similar and we bring the animals to the people rather than waiting for the people to come to the animals, that might be something.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the idea to put photos of the adoptable animals, flyers of those animals on pizza boxes, and bring it right to the customer's front door.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of how Pizza for Pets started, and we saw great success. We had over 50 animals adopted that were high risk for euthanasia, and at the shelter for 300 plus days. And somebody was bringing our flyer into the shelter for free adoption, spay neuter, vaccines on this dog that had been there for so long. And so we started branching out to other eateries, establishments. We did plants for pets with a vegan restaurant. We did pasta for pets with an Italian place, coffee for canines with a coffee shop, but all the same concept, just getting a flyer in front of the customer. Hey, take this flyer if you think this dog is cute, read about it, and go to the shelter.
Wow. And that seems to be pretty effective, correct?
Yeah. We had, like I said, over 50 adoptions of these high-risk animals that just needed a little extra attention. They needed the extra spotlight, and people thought it was super cute to, have a dog on a pizza box or, a takeout bag. And yeah.
That's such a cool concept.
Yeah.
So as the regional director for the Florida Pet Services Association, what are you doing to raise the standards for pet care businesses in Florida?
It's been, I don't want to say an issue, but this is an unregulated field. So anybody can be a pet sitter or a dog walker, just like anybody.
Really?
Anybody can be a groomer or a dog trainer. There's no license for being a pet sitter or a dog walker.
That's
so
very surprising.
yeah, and it needs to have that. But while it doesn't have that, the Florida Pet Services Association, they are on a mission to raise the standard of care for these people that have these, pet sitting and dog walking businesses, so that, we're not seeing the Facebook posts for the pet sitter lost my dog and, the horror stories of, things that are happening during pet sitting and dog walking. So their standards are high with, making sure that you're a registered business for Florida State, making sure that you carry liability insurance, bonding, all that stuff. So being part of an association that wants those high standards, I'm all about that, because that's what I strive to do in my business. So being able to be the regional director for that and try to change this area specifically, I'm all about collaboration over competition. I would rather build another pet sitter up that's my competitor and have another option for care in this area, because I would rather refer to somebody that could be my partner than send somebody somewhere else and them have an awful experience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to continue to be the second step.
Yeah.
Because we get a lot of those clients that were the second stop because they had an awful experience the first time. I just don't want those people to have that first stop experience anymore.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think it's gone so long without regulation for these services? What's the argument to not have them?
I just think it's not being talked about enough. And I think that some of these big platforms for pet sitting and dog walking, they haven't had enough instances. There have been plenty of instances and fatalities and, losing dogs and stuff like that, but there hasn't been any kind of push for change. But I don't want it to get to the point where something awful has to happen and continue to happen for some kind of change to start there. So that's essentially the big mindset behind the Florida Pet Services Association is, just raising the bar, raising the standard, and building a group of dedicated professionals that we can all refer to each other and trust that, we're referring to great people.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could do that, not just in Florida, but everywhere, I think it'll take a little bit of time, but I think that it'll give people better options for care. And, those people won't have to have that first stop experience.
Yeah. And for people who are listening to the podcast and are like, wow, I did not know that these services weren't regulated. How do I advocate for that? How do I help push for that? What could they do?
So definitely doing your due diligence. So looking for a licensed business, somebody that's registered with the state, somebody that pays their annual fees, somebody that's licensed, insured, bonded, is dedicated to continuing education. That doesn't mean, they took a CPR class once 10 years ago. They keep up with their education, fear-free certified, just doing your own homework and finding professionals rather than going with the cheapest option and whoever's available and whoever likes dogs, because this is the dream job. Everybody wants to play with dogs and cats all day, but not everybody should. And goats, yeah, but not everybody should. So, trying to go with the professional from the beginning rather than having that first stop experience.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, like you said, you've come across lots of people who have the scary horror stories of this happened to my pet and now I'm here. Is there like a resource or a platform they can share their stories on currently? Maybe they like all come together. These are just like, I'm just throwing some ideas out there.
I mean, you can definitely type into Google like a popular platform and then horror story and then fatality, and you can see all the news articles that come up. I mean, I've seen them on the news 100 times. I don't know if there's like specifically like a group for it, but I do know that once something does happen, there are a lot of resources for it, but proactively, that might be a good idea.
You're also a speaker and sit on the veterinary medical board at Southern Technical College. Why is it so important for you to give back and guide the next generation in this field?
That was something that was super important to me also, because the young mind, I'm almost 30, so I'm not like old by any means, but the younger generation is the future, and getting them at that stage when they're in school. These are people that have the care, the compassion, they have that drive. They want to work with animals. They're starting where I started, in reception as a veterinary assistant. Getting to them at that point and just like teaching them and trying to mold them to have the values that we have is something that's super important to me, because I want to build that higher standard across the board, not just for my business. It's not just about me. This is something that's way bigger than I am. It's about molding them so that their values are higher than everybody else, and they don't fall into that stereotype that people think sometimes when you think about veterinary medicine, is that they're only in it for the money, and they have that care and that compassion to drive them into their future.
And I love that like you recognized an issue and then you did something about it. And there's probably a lot of people who are like, wow, this is horrible, and they all agree, but then there's no, domino effect, next steps. So this just goes to show the people out there, like, if you want to instill change, like, you can actually do that if you're not lazy,
Something small, like anything, whatever your passion is, if your passion is air conditioning, if your passion is coffee, pets, whatever it is, and like you see an issue, like do something about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this monumental change, and nothing that I've done over the course of my career, whether it was working for the government or working in private practice or in my own business, nothing has been monumental. There've just been small changes that have made my business better, myself better, and hopefully those around me better, and the animals that we take care of and the clients that we service. They've just been like small changes that are leading up to some kind of a bigger picture at the end of the road.
For sure. Yeah. You just put a picture of a dog on a pizza box.
Right. Like that's it. And I hope that it did something.
Dogs. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we recently, when we had the hurricanes at the end of last year, we just want to be involved. Like, we just want to do something. And if I have this platform of a business and like being self-employed and like being able to build my own schedule, like, let's just do something with it. We went down to the fish house in Ruskin and we handed out pet food. We did like 2,000 pounds of pet food that we donated and gave away to people that lost everything. And you don't need to be a giant corporation to do that. You can be a small business. You can be a person and just do that. Just like do something for somebody else, you know?
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to pivot a little to your past media coverage. You've been featured in press and industry podcasts like Her Business Beat and Pet Sitter Confessional. What was it like sharing your story publicly, and how has that exposure impacted your mission or confidence?
I love talking about what I do. I love, again, our staff and the business and our clients and everything. And, you know, the people that are in our industry that listen to Pet Sitter Confessional, you know, it's an amazing resource for people. So just being able to talk about what I do and teach people, you know, anything to do with veterinary medicine or animal welfare or about what I've done, you know, to be able to be an entrepreneur and be self-employed. And, you know, the goal was always to do something else. You know, I quickly realized that being a veterinary technician was great and I loved it, but I couldn't be a vet tech forever because I couldn't survive on the salary. So I either needed to be the doctor, and I was not going to medical school, or I needed to do something completely different. And, you know, I loved my job with the government. I loved working for Hillsborough County. I loved working in animal control, but I didn't want to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. You know, I wanted to be self-employed and, you know, spend time with my family. And that's the most important thing to me, you know, and being able to do that has been the best move that I've ever made. And I know what kind of like effect that has had on me and my mental health and everything. So like if I can inspire like other people to, you know, do the same, then why not?
Okay. You know? Awesome. And every entrepreneur has hit some roadblocks or, you know, had to overcome some obstacle. How, in your experience, what are some examples of that, and how did you overcome them?
The initial jump from working a government job and having a pension set up and health insurance and all that to being self-employed and having none of that and no job security was definitely the big plunge. And I think that that's what holds a lot of people back because they have something that is guaranteed, that is safe, that is secure, but they just don't make the jump. And then, you know, this dream of being self-employed is just that. It's just a dream, and it's understandable. And there was a lot of anxiety around it, but, you know, I made the plunge and I had to. And, you know, I had the business plan and I had everything, and it took a while. And my fiance is a huge, huge part of that. You know, I went to him and we were talking about it, and, you know, he's the one that inspired me to get a website and do things, you know, legit and do it correctly from the beginning. And having him as a support system, I was able to make the jump and, you know, overcome that roadblock.
That's amazing. Yeah. A lot of people just, one, don't want to make the sacrifices that go along with starting something like that. And then two, don't want to take the risk or aren't feel like they're not able to or something like that. So that's amazing that you're able to do both those things.
Yeah, definitely.
Healthcare is a big deal.
Oh, yeah, for Dev.
Definitely want to have healthcare. So pet care can be physically and emotionally draining. How do you deal with burnout? How do you deal with seeing these awful things happening to pets? I'm sure, you know, you have so many stories and people come to you with these stories. How do you cope with that?
So compassion fatigue is a term that I learned while working in veterinary medicine, and it's definitely something that spills into our business that we have today. It's a conversation that I have with my manager all the time, and something that we have to be like very well aware of with our staff. we bond with these animals. We take care of them. Some of our clients have been with us for years now. These pets are like our pets. So especially when we learn that like a pet passes away, it's really difficult for myself, for my staff especially, and wanting to help everybody all the time and say yes all the time, because most times we are people's only option. So if we're not available and we don't say yes, they can't travel. They can't go out of state for that funeral. They can't go to their daughter's graduation. So wanting to say yes also contributes to the burnout as well. So you have compassion fatigue on top of burnout, and it's kind of a recipe for disaster if it's not handled properly. So that's something that's super important to myself, my manager, just to make sure that we're not overdoing it, overbooking ourselves, overworking ourselves, and then, being able to provide resources for my staff when we do lose pets, because half the time it feels like our own animals.
Yeah. So you've touched on dealing with antisocial tendencies and how it can be to build relationships in this space. How have you grown through that?
I work with animals. So usually when people work with animals, it's because they don't want to deal with people. So,
That's fair.
so I wouldn't say I'm an antisocial person, but it definitely has taken me out of my comfort zone more times than not. And I think that what got me over that was building a strong network and networking with other women and just talking about the business and the story and, hearing other people's stories and how they got started and the obstacles that they had to go through, because we're one and the same. We might be in different fields, but we all went through something to get to this point. So being able to like network with other business owners and other entrepreneurs has definitely made me business besties and stuff like that. So it makes me want to be around humans a little bit more.
There is good in this world. And
right.
Right. Not just animals, people too. I'm curious, what did your family think when you were getting heavily involved with these nonprofits, these businesses, and following this path?
My fiance, Hernan, he has been the most supportive person in the entire world about this whole thing. And, he has a county job also. So he understands the safety and the security of leaving that and going off on my own. And, he has been nothing but a rock for me and, supported me through every single doubt that I had in my mind about myself and negative thought, and, has been a really, really big proponent of change in the way that I look at things and the way that I view the world and the attitude that I have towards my job, towards my career, because it is, a career. And although it's pet sitting and dog walking, it's my life. And, having that unwavering support from day one, I don't think I would have been able to do it without him.
So talking a little more about your legacy family and everything, can you tell us about Zoe and Luna and Tuna? Your two personal pups. What have they taught you about care, connection, and leadership?
So he says all the time that the dogs have taught him so much. So before me and the dogs, he was petless for a couple of years, and he almost forgot how much animals can teach us. And I've seen that with my own dogs, with him, with myself, because these Zoe and Luna Tuna are my first dogs as an adult, as anything ever. And my one dog, Zoe, takes a lot of patience out of me. And, Luna Tuna just loves everything and loves everybody. So, they teach us a lot, just by existing. Dogs are always happy to see you, always. They're a small part of our lives, but to them, like, we're their entire world, like everything. And, being a dog owner specifically, like, I don't think that I could have the view that I have on this field in my business without being a dog owner. I think I would be like very question like a pet business owner if you didn't own an animal, because like you have that firsthand knowledge and like that firsthand experience of like the compassion and the care that you have to have and the patience to like deal with your dogs and, enrich their lives and enrich your own life. So they definitely have played a crucial role in my standards. And, if I think about a potential hire, if I think about a potential service, the standard is always my own animals. What I want this person caring for my own dogs, what I want this person inside my home, what I want, this service for my dog. If there have been times that we have to make judgment calls for our clients, when they're like, hey, let's do 2 30-minute visits a day and my dog is crated. I have to say to the client, like, hey, like, I know this is what you want, but maybe it would be better if we do 4 45-minute visits so that they have more time out of the crate. And, just suggestions just based on like, I'm thinking about Luna Tuna in a crate for 22 hours,
Yeah.
how would she do with that? So being able to have that like almost as a reference is beneficial, I think.
When you think about legacy, what do you hope Professional Pets Florida and Pizza for Pets will represent years from now?
Years from now. So Pizza for Pets, I definitely hope that it grows into something that is bigger than me. So I don't like claim Pizza for Pets as like my brand or anything like that. Like anybody can do it anywhere. You got a city, you got pizza places, you got dogs in a shelter that need to be adopted, like go for it. Like do the same thing and do it in your city at your local, high euthanasia shelter. So I would love to just kind of spark some inspiration to other people that are maybe listening about it and like have learned about the project and want to do something else. For Professional Pets Florida, I would like to see it on a larger scale rather than just in Hillsborough County. So like maybe Professional Pets Florida, Pinellas County, maybe Professional Pets Florida, Jacksonville, other places, and just kind of spread that high quality care that we have here for Hillsborough and spread the love.
Yeah, that's awesome. And maybe you touched on this a little bit earlier, but do you mind sharing like the adoption story for your pets?
Yeah, sure. So both of my dogs were not from the shelter. They were both from Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So my youngest, Zoe, she was my first dog. And I found her on Facebook, and this guy was just giving her away. And he's like, I found this dog on the street in Holiday, Florida, which is like an hour and a half, I think, north of here in Pasco County. And he had like XXL bullies. And he's like, this little dog, this little pit bull, like I found her, and my dogs won't accept her if anybody wants her, $50. So we drove out there, saw her, and she's an itty bitty pitty. She's super little. She's like 35 pounds. And immediately just like fell in love with her. And I thought she was the best dog ever. And then I got my second dog and realized that she was also the best dog ever. And she was the same thing. She was a Facebook Marketplace find. And the people that had posted her had said that she was a purebred blue nose something. She's a pit bull. And and
They're playing it up.
yeah, and they were like $800. I was like,
Wow.
$800 for a pit bull? Like I could go to the shelter right now and get a pit bull for free or for $20. So I asked them, and I was a vet tech at the time. I'm like, hey, like what does she come with? Like what accessories does she have? Like, and they're like, nothing. And I'm like, okay, what do you want $800 for? I was like, do you have a health certificate? Do you have rabies vaccinations? Is she spayed? No, nothing. I was like, all right, listen. I'll take this dog, but I'll take this dog for free. And they were like, you know what? We just want her to go to a good home. And that was it. And I was living in Pasco County at the time. And I drove all the way to Valrico, which is here in Hillsborough County. And I picked her up, and it was like love at first sight. And she was severely underweight.
Oh.
And she didn't. I was nervous about like introducing my two dogs, but as soon as they met each other, they were best friends. They're so bonded, and they're like sisters. And I got them both about the same age, about 6 months, and now they're almost 8. So I've had them for a long time, and they've been with me through every journey that I've had with veterinary medicine and animal control and with this business. So they've been definitely inspiration for a lot of it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Have you considered a third pet?
No.
You're like, I'm maxed out.
No,
I want to
yeah.
adopt them all.
Yeah. Luckily, my Zoe is not super friendly with other dogs. So, working in animal control and seeing all of the dogs that needed homes, like I was almost grateful that Zoe didn't like other dogs because I think I would have ended up with like 20 dogs by now
Yeah.
if I didn't have her as kind of like my buffer. So, yeah.
She's the gatekeeper for
Yeah,
the house.
she is. Yeah. So it'll just be Zoe and Tuna.
Yeah, that's great. And I have a final question here, but we still have some time. Is there any personal stories that you want to share about the business? Anything that we haven't touched on yet?
Maybe just like a bit of I don't know, like a glimpse into like the private pet care world that, if you're somebody that's starting a business and you have values and you have standards that you want to stick by. We had I would say two or three cases where, you think of private pet care and it's more of like a luxury service, right? We're coming to you. This is not a crowded boarding facility with 50 dogs to one person. Like this is a one-on-one experience most of the time. So you expect the people that, are looking out for this kind of personalized care that they, have very high standards for themselves. They have very high standards for their animals. That's not always the case. So we had like 2 or 3 cases where animals weren't taken care of properly and their housing conditions weren't the best. And we had to like step in and intervene and like contact animal control and like put the business on the line, because that could have been like a scathing Google review for us just because, the pet sitter came in and reported me to animal control because, it was covered in fleas or extremely matted or emaciated. So just not compromising on your values for the sake of your business and, your business on the line, whether it's, fearing a bad review or, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of been like a huge test for us because, it's like, what do you do? Do you risk it for the biscuit or do you, just not say anything? And, it was never a choice. It was always just to advocate for these animals, even if it was in this private situation, when we were taking care of their pets,
Yeah. For times that you have reported things, was there like consequences that were pretty harsh against you or the business?
We haven't had any backlash yet, in that sense, but we did have a case where, we come out and we do a new in-person like consultation, and sometimes for whatever reason, either the client is not a good fit or the pet is not a good fit for us because, the consult is an interview on both parts because, you have to want to hire us and we have to accept you as a client. And there's been a time where we didn't think that it was a good fit for whatever reason. And we denied a client and we got a very, very nasty review.
I can imagine.
Just because, people get defensive and people don't want to be told no, especially if they felt that it went well, And, that's another instance. You just have to make a judgment call and like stick to, this client doesn't fit our qualifications for, becoming a client with us for whatever reason. And, dealing with that and like doubling down and just being like, like I'm confident in this decision and I'm okay. And, if anything bad comes out of it, like so be it. But that's it at the end of the day.
So what kind of things would a client communicate or demonstrate that would have you say, no, I'm sorry, we can't take you?
So definitely like the condition of their home, like it needs to be like a clean work environment for myself, my staff. It needs to be a safe work environment. So like we can't have like drugs or paraphernalia. This is just as you would expect for somebody walking into a job at Walmart. Like it needs to be like a clean work environment. It needs to be safe. It needs to be acceptable for my staff, that I have to pay workman's comp. Like,
Yeah.
it needs to be okay for us. And sometimes it's not. Another one is with their animals. Sometimes the dogs or the cats are not a good fit because they're not new friend friendly. And that's our kind of like our starting point for these consults is, we don't need every dog to be golden retriever energy. Like, we don't need that. We will work with you if they are taking time to warm up, or, they have special needs, or it's a more complicated routine or care. Totally fine, but we can't do aggression. We can't do lunging, biting, trying to eat my face off. Like, we just, for safety purposes, we just can't do it. So sometimes in that situation, we have to make the difficult call to say, this might not be the best fit for us, and we might not be the best fit for you. And, we're able to refer them to somebody else that might be the better fit for them. And that kind of loops back to building a referral network of people that you can trust, and these qualified professionals that we look for in the Florida Pet Services Association. So, I'm not sending a problem to somebody else. I'm not
Yeah.
sending this, this client to the unqualified kid in the neighborhood that doesn't know how to deal with dogs. If we aren't able to take the client on, I don't want to send them to somebody less qualified than me. I want to send somebody more qualified than I am, just to say, we're not the best fit. We have dog trainers that we work with, like board and trained facilities that like we know, like, and trust because, we've referred clients to them, and they say like, they were amazing. This was great, So just kind of building that network is super important.
Mm-hmm. I love that you really rely on different organizations within the pet community, and it's all about helping each other. Lifting each other up. It's at the end of the day, it's all about pet safety, the care for the pets, not about profit. So
Exactly. And I mean, there are thousands of animals in Hillsborough County. We cannot take care of them all.
Mm-hmm.
We are not the best fit for them all. They are not the best fit for us. So it's not about us. Again, I said it before, this is something that's bigger than me, bigger than Professional Pets Florida. It's, ensuring that these people don't have awful experiences. And, I don't need the number. Like, I'm not going to say yes to every client because we need the number, and they're not going to say yes to us because they're desperate, either. So having that higher standard across the board with, fair pricing that reflects licenses, insurance, workers' comp, W-2 employees, all that stuff, it's something to take into consideration.
Mm-hmm. And in the future, if you expand, like you said you would like to, how do you maintain the same standard, with a big organization?
I think that it's finding those key players. It's finding those people that you can trust. And again, I joke it's about a vibe, but I mean, it really is. My manager, Justine, she is somebody that I knew because I met her through Pizza for Pets. I met her, she was managing a restaurant that was a partner for Pizza for Pets. So she was slapping flyers on takeout bags and stuff like that at one of the vegan places. And I just saw her and we became friends, and I was like, this girl has got it. Like, she's got it. Like, this is the person that I know needs to like manage my business. And she didn't have any animal care experience. She worked in the restaurant industry, but I also worked in the restaurant industry before I got into vet med. I was slinging drinks and waiting tables also. So like, I know the hustle, like I know the vibe, and she just had it. And I was like, do you want a job? Like,
Yeah.
and I think, and she's been like the most phenomenal right-hand asset to the company. And finding people like that I trust to put in these key positions for management, for team leads, that I think is going to shape the way for expansion in the future.
For your nonprofit, if people wanted to donate, how could they go about that?
So we have a PayPal for like flyer production. So we have sponsors that, are small businesses that, we add their logo to the flyers. But if anybody wanted to help towards printing costs, we have a PayPal for Pizza for Pets that I can give you the info for.
And whenever there's like a hurricane or some sort of crisis, that happens in the area, do you accept donations to like help? I know you mentioned you bought food for animals. Do you accept donations for that?
Yeah, so during Milton and Helene, we got a PO box set up and we had Amazon wish lists. And I mean, we had deliveries every single day of people just donating food and supplies to these people that lost everything. So if hopefully not, we run into another hurricane, we'll definitely do something like that also again.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you work with these small animal businesses like trainers and things like that. Do you still work with government agencies as well?
So we do what we can definitely for the Pet Resource Center. That's Hillsborough County's government-funded shelter.
Mm-hmm.
We work every event that we possibly can with them. We donate our time, we donate our resources. The last event that we just did there, we did like dog baths for all the sheltered dogs and nail trims and stuff like
Oh, wow.
that. They had a mega adoption event that we donated like 1,000 frisbees for. So we do what we can definitely. And I work closely with the shelter manager at the shelter, and, you know, she gives me the updates on, you know, who's been adopted, who brought in a flyer today for what dog, and, you know, who went home on their freedom ride and stuff like that. So
That's awesome. And so you mentioned that you got both your pets off Facebook Marketplace. And is there, like, would you recommend that other people do that, just to, like, save pets? Or how would you approach that? Because I know that's a sticky, situation there.
So, I mean, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when I got my dogs, you know, I was very undereducated. You know, I got them before I started working at the shelter. So I probably would recommend anybody that's looking to rescue an animal to go to the shelter first, because those Facebook Marketplace dogs will end up at the shelter eventually. If somebody doesn't get them off
Buy
Facebook,
them.
they're going to go
Yeah.
there anyway. So, you know, I paid $50 collectively for both of my dogs. You know, you could get a dog for free at the Pet Resource Center. So I would probably recommend that they go there first. You know, they get a dog or a cat that's spayed, neutered, rabies vaccinated, microchip, the whole nine, rather than just like getting a random dog off the internet. You know, Facebook Marketplace is a little better than like Craigslist. I mean, we're
Craigslist still a thing.
Yeah, but probably wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, those dogs and cats, they have to get adopted anyway, so
Yeah.
just go there.
That makes sense. For people who are like maybe browsing a Facebook Marketplace, they weren't looking for a pet, but see like maybe a dangerous situation, or like, their neighbors, or maybe not their neighbors, but people they know aren't taking care of their pet and they have like a real concern for that pet. How can they go about like reporting it and making sure that pet's taken care of?
So that is definitely something that I will, again, I'm from New York. So like see something, say something is like the tagline of New York, right?
Yeah.
So same applies here in Florida. If you see something with your neighbor, with your family member driving by, you see a dog chained to a pole in the backyard, just call. Just make a call, make a complaint, file a form online, like just do something.
Mm-hmm.
You'll sleep better at the end of the night if, you know, you knew that you did something about it. And, you know, these animals at the end of the day, they don't have a voice. We have to advocate for them. So if you have a humane bone in your body and you have morals and you love animals, just say something, you know, even if it's your butt on the line. You know, we used to have, when I worked in animal control, people just didn't want to say anything because they didn't want to stir the pot and they didn't want to like cause issues with their neighbor, and they would just rather stay quiet. And then something terrible happens, and then, you know, you're left to deal with that. So I always just recommend just put a call in, even if it's nothing. At least you open the door or the window for an opportunity for, you know, an animal control officer to go out there and assess the situation. You know, you don't know what you don't know. So, you know, something could look one way, but it's really the other way, or, you know, it could definitely be something more, and, you know, something else comes out of it. So always just call.
Yeah. All right. So my final question here. What advice would you give to women listening to Her Story podcast who are dreaming of starting their own business or leading with purpose?
I would say to find the thing that you're passionate about. Like I said earlier, coffee, air conditionings, dogs, and just run with it. Just do it. We're in an age where there is no job security most of the time anyway.
Not even in government.
No, there's really not. So, if you're wanting to feel secure, there's no more secure position than being self-employed. And it is nerve-wracking, and it is anxiety-wracking, and it is all of the things, because at the end of the day, the work that you put in is what you get out of it. If you're a lazy business owner and you don't put any work in, you're not going to turn a profit, and you're not going to be able to feed yourself and support your family. So if you have the drive and you've got that bug and you want to make something out of it, just do it. Just try it. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You make a product and like nobody buys it, or you start a service and nobody books it. At least you tried. If you're somebody that's content in your 9 to 5 and like this is what you want to do for the rest of your life, more power to you. Some people just don't have that bug. Some people want something a little bit more with a little more security. So I would say that if you have that feeling and you want to do something, no matter what it is, even if you think it's silly, just do it. Just try it.
Yeah.
There's nothing bad that could happen from it.
Mm-hmm. Just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me and for taking the time to be on the podcast and sharing about your businesses and nonprofits. I really hope that this podcast helps you get some exposure and some donations rolling in. So
thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.